SHMACKEMAGOB people, I'm making this video on the anniversary, 40th anniversary of seeing Randy Rhoads. It was Ozzy Osbourne and Def Leppard, September 11th, 1981. Here's the ticket. Now, we all know September 11th has turned into something very different now, but you know, until 2001 came, I always remember September 11th, 9/11 was the day I got to see Randy Rhoads. Privileged to see Randy Rhoads. And on a side note, I'll never forget 9/11. The Twin Towers, horrible, horrible. And my thoughts are for everybody that was killed in that building and all the firefighters and everybody involved. Very sad day. But let's go back to 1981. Even back then, my favorite band was Black Sabbath with Ozzy, the 70s. So, of course, I was very excited to see Ozzy Osbourne because I did see Black Sabbath in 1980 on the Heaven and Hell tour at the Miami High Live. It wasn't Black and Blue. Blues Are Called wasn't on that show. It was Black Sabbath, Johnny Van Zant Band, and Riot. The first time I saw Riot, blew my mind. Narita tour. But I wanted to see Ozzy, man. And I'll never forget like some burnouts up there because I was kind of like in the nosebleeds. But the highlight was a small venue, so nosebleeds I still got a great view. But I remember some older headbangers going, man, what the fuck, man? Black Sabbath without Ozzy is bullshit. But they were there. And I don't know what they said after the show, but I'm sure they said, holy fuck, that was good. Because it was an amazing show. But I'm finally going to see Ozzy, and an extra bonus for me was Def Leppard was opening. And man, in 1980, my favorite year of metal, so many great albums came out that year. That year, the album I listened to the most was On Through the Night. I was fanatical about Def Leppard. And then High and Dry came out. I'll never forget the first time hearing High and Dry was in this room. I moved back to my childhood home. And the radio said, we got new Def Leppard coming up, and they played Let It Go, and the first thing I thought listening to it was like, oh shit, they got rid of Joe Elliott, because it doesn't sound like Joe Elliott. It's more raspier voice, but I ran out and bought the album. I was like, oh shit, it is Joe Elliott. And, you know, to this day, High and Dry is my favorite Def Leppard album. And they were on the High and Dry tour, so I was so excited to see Def Leppard and Ozzy. I bought Blizzard of Oz too before the show, but you know, in 1980 it was released in Europe, and my friend Ronnie, who lived down the block, which was the older brother of my friend Dale, he had the import of Blizzard of Oz, so I got to hear it, but didn't really analyze it much. He just played it, you know, while we were in the house talking amongst each other, and wasn't really focused on the album. That when I finally did buy Blizzard of Oz and played it at home, the one thing that stuck in my mind the first time hearing it was the solo on Mr. Crowley. I was like, whoa, man, that's awesome. So, I go to the show. I didn't have front row seats, but I ended up even in front of front row. Because it was easier to sneak up back then at shows. It was very simple. And I snuck up. I mean, I snuck up so close that I'm actually literally against the board on the stage. Like, you know, stage is a little higher, but I'm against the board. Nobody in front of me. And there's only one picture that I know of that exists of that show, and it was a guy behind me that took this picture. Look how close that picture is. That picture was taken from somebody behind me. I'm all the way up front, and I gotta say, you know, first, I'm up there and Def Leppard comes out. And they open up with the song On Through the Night, and they were amazing. I mean, they were little kids, little young kids, and they were on fire, man. They were just jamming, and they were like all over the stage, and Pete Willis is smack in front of me. That's the thing. I'm on the right side of the stage, all the way up front, in front of Pete Willis, and then you know I'm in front of Randy when he comes out. But anyway, I remember that night. I have a really bad memory, but when it comes to set lists, I remember shit like that. 40 years ago, I can tell you what Def Leppard played. Not in order. But I know they opened with On Through the Night, and I know right after On Through the Night, they played It Could Be You, off On Through the Night. Now, the other songs they played, not in order. I I remember they played Let It Go, Another Hit and Run, Saturday Night, High and Dry, and Lady Strange. That's the only thing. They were opening act. They didn't play Bringing On the Heartbreak. You know, there was no time for ballads. This was a rip-roaring opening set. And off of On Through the Night, they played Rock Brigade, It Could Be You, and Wasted. Ripping set. I mean, they're heavy songs. It was just mind-blowing. And little Pete Willis in front of me, just ripping, man. It was and Steve Clark too, man, was ripping. The whole band, you know, and Rick with the 2 arms, you know, he was the youngest out of the band. I don't know how old he was then, but I think he was still a teenager. Anyway, they ruled. So, out comes Ozzy. And honestly, I was blown away by this guitar player, but I didn't register his name yet. You know, I'm watching this guy inches from me, not knowing his name. Just know this is that guitar player that plays Mr. Crowley, that rips. And he came out. I'll never forget this. This is a vision I'll never forget. They open up with I Don't Know. And I'll never forget when Randy does this whammy bar thing, but he doesn't have a whammy bar. He's playing that cream Les Paul. And he does this with his arm, you know. He just bends that fucking neck. Oh, man. I never seen anything like it back then. I was like, wow. And he's this little frail guy, and this guitar looks too heavy for him. But no, he just ripped, man. And I remember this set list too. They played all of Blizzard of Oz except for No-Bo Movies and Goodbye to Romance. Everything else they played. And they also played Believer and Flying High Again, which wasn't out yet. Ozzy introduces this is going to be on our next album. And Iron Man and Children of the Grave. That was the set list. And Ozzy was in rare form that night. I mean, I never saw him so fucking crazy. He was really headbanging crazy. He was like ripped off his shirt with the little furlies that said Ozzy on it, threw it in the crowd. You know, and I'm like on the right side, but I saw people beating the shit out of each other, ripping that shirt trying to get it. And Randy comes out, man, and then Randy, when he did that guitar solo, and by that time he has that polka dot flying V, and you know he does most of it center stage, which is like, you know, maybe 5 feet away from me now, and I'm like, God damn, look at this guy, man, you know, and he came in front of me too, doing the solo shit, but you know the whole show he was in front of me. It was just a solo. He went there, you know, and a couple times he went back toward the drum riser, but he was right there. Dude, I was right there. Fucking mind blown. And I remember leaving that show thinking to myself, my God, that guitar player for Ozzy, man. Wow. He was mind blowing. And I bought this the night of the show. And I also bought this shirt right here that I don't own anymore because that shirt was denigrated through the years. But tour books are forever. And I want to show you this because this is interesting. Because by this time, Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley weren't in the band. It was Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge. Which, by the way, I told Rudy Sarzo about that show, and he remembered it because he's from South Florida and his parents went to go see it. So, but anyway, this tour book doesn't have Rudy Sarzo or Tommy Aldridge. It has, as you can see, Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley. And all the way through it. The whole book is all, you know, this is Blizzard of Oz, as some of you know. The band wasn't supposed to be called Ozzy Osbourne. It was supposed to be called Blizzard of Oz. And as you can see, I had Ozzy sign this book right there when I met him back in 1995. I'll go through the book for you and show you guys, man, some cool pictures. And here, Randy Rhoads, man. Boy, after I bought this book, I didn't forget this guy's name. Randy Rhoads. Can't believe I got to see him. And then it has this collage thing, but here's a classic picture of the Blizzard of Oz lineup. Bob Daisley, as you can see. And the late, great Lee Kerslake. And that's it, right? Yeah, as you can see. And then it brings this poster. It brought a poster that the staples got loose through the years, through the 40 years. It's got a picture of the Blizzard of Oz lineup, really cool, and a collage on the other side. Cool pictures, you know, fucking Ozzy with Linda Blair. That was back in the Black Sabbath days. And a lot of cool pictures, man. Ozzy with his mom, and on the beach, and yeah, all these are, you know, there's no pictures of the band in the collage. It's all Ozzy, and most of it, or maybe all of it, is Black Sabbath era stuff. So anyway, Ozzy comes back with Randy Rhoads, and they're supposed to play the Orange Bowl with Foreigner. And on the way down here, the accident happened. And I'll never forget it, man. I'm walking home from school, and I see Ronnie, the same guy that owned that Blizzard of Oz thing, say to me, "Hey, did you hear Ozzy Osbourne died in a plane crash?" And I was like, "What?" And then I walked away going, "No, man, that shit's a rumor." I mean, Ozzy was all over the news at that time, biting the head of the bat, pissing on the Alamo. And I was just thinking, it just can't be true. And I go home and I watch the news, and I'll never forget, man. Her name was Ann Bishop. She was an elderly news lady who has to be deceased by now. That was 40 years ago. She must have been like 70 or 80 at the time. And she said, I'll never forget it, Ozzy Osbourne. She said burn. And I was like, oh my God, it is true, he died. But no, she explained that Ozzy Osbourne was involved in an accident, a plane crash hit his tour bus, killing lead guitar player Randy Rhoads. And I was like, gutted. Just gutted. I was supposed to see him like a day or two later at the Orange Bowl. Couldn't believe it, man. I already had my tickets. And it just blew my mind. I mean, at that time, I was young, man. I never experienced like a death. You know, my grandma, but she was in Cuba and I didn't know her well, you know. But this was different, you know. This was somebody I idolized. You know, because after that Sunrise show, to the next year, all I did was tell people about Randy Rhoads, man. Ozzy's guitar player, he's just so amazing. But I went to the show anyway because, hey, I had tickets, right? And Pat Travers was the one that replaced Ozzy on that set on the show. And UFO was also there. And I believe Bryan Adams and Foreigner headline. And that show ended at 6 p.m. and there was not one mention of Ozzy or Randy Rhoads the whole show. And that really bummed me out. And I was really bummed. The show was done by 6 p.m. and I thought, man, this is the worst show I've ever been to at that point. You know, this was before I saw Van Hagar. It was like the worst show I ever saw. And then after the show, there was a guy selling bootleg shirts, you know, a Foreigner and this and that. And he was wearing this shirt that you see right here. It was a jersey of the Diary of a Madman, which would have been sold that day if Ozzy played. And I told him, dude, I'll buy that shirt off your back for $20. Now, $20 in 1982, that's a whole lot of fucking money. That guy took off the shirt, jersey, and gave it to me. And I owned that shirt for the longest time. And again, concert shirts in the 80s, man, they didn't last long. I do have one. I do have one that's all beat up to hell. My ex-girlfriend bought it on eBay. It was the Journey Aerosmith stadium show with, I think, Bryan Adams and Sammy Hagar opened. You know, Sammy Hagar said he never opened for anybody since 1979 on the Howard Stern show. Yeah, he opened that show. But anyway, it's been 40 years, man. Time flies, because it just seems like yesterday. I was right up front watching the greatness of Randy Rhoads and Pete Willis and Def Leppard. And I wanted to make a video, you know, just talking about what a historic night. And it was 2 nights he played Sunrise. I went to, I believe it was the first night. I could be wrong. I have to look into that. But just wanted to make this video saying 40 years, and at least I got to see the great Randy Rhoads once, you know? Even though I didn't know his name, I remember being blown away by the solo on Mr. Crowley on the Blizzard of Oz album. And then, you know, watching the show on, you know, every song on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, which I like even more, my favorite Diary of a Madman, then Blizzard. To me, the Ozzy stuff with Randy is the best. But anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. And Thank you for watching, everybody. If you'd like to donate, I got a PayPal in the description below. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, alright? All hail Randy Rhoads. Stay frosty, listen to Black Sabbath, and schmack 'em a gob.